Cipollone, the White House counsel, and 7 other people. And
who are you going to believe? Rudolph Giuliani or Rudolph Giuliani?
I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a functioning, I'm probably function more effectively than 90% of the population.
The same Rudolph Giuliani told a reporter while he was drinking a Bloody Mary, "I love scotch. I can't help it. All of the malts. And part of it is cigars. I love to have them with cigars. I'm a partier." Rudolph Giuliani's previous wives have a less than charitable view of him as a partier. One of the witnesses to the January 6th committee testified under oath that Rudolph Giuliani was drunk on election night 2020 when he told Donald Trump to publicly go out there and declare victory, which Donald Trump did, knowing that it was not true.
What was your observation about his potential intoxication during that discussion about what the president should say when he's addressed the nation on election night?
The mayor was definitely intoxicated, but I do not know his level of intoxication when he spoke with the president.
And we don't know his level of intoxication when Rudolph Giuliani said this.
When I went to bed on election night, he was ahead in all those states, every single one of those states. How is it they all turned around? Every single one of them turned around? Or is it more consistent that there was a plan to turn them around? And since there are witnesses who say there was a plan to turn them around, and it kind of begs credulity to say that it all happened in every single state, my goodness, this is how you win cases in a courtroom.
How drunk does your lawyer have to be before you stop following his advice? That is a question, a legal question that Donald Trump's criminal defense team will have to answer when he goes on trial on March 4th in Washington, D.C. Rolling Stone is reporting in their questioning of multiple witnesses, Smith's team of federal investigators have asked questions about how seemingly intoxicated Giuliani was during the weeks he was giving Trump advice on how to cling to power, according to a source who's been in the room with Smith's team, one witness's attorney, and a third person familiar with the matter. Some witnesses told Smith's team that they saw Giuliani consuming significant quantities of alcohol. Some told the special counsel's office that they could clearly smell alcohol on Giuliani's breath, including on election night. Some have already told investigators that they were directly aware of moments when Trump had talked to others about Giuliani's drinking and that Trump spoke negatively about his then top lawyer's alcohol consumption. NBC News has not independently confirmed Rolling Stone's drunk lawyering reporting. Glenn Kirshner is back with us. Glenn, so how drunk does your lawyer have to be before your defense, based on advice of counsel, completely collapses?
It sounds like the setup for a punchline, Lawrence, but here's the thing. You know, reliance on advice of counsel can be a viable defense. Think about one of the more ordinary circumstances. My tax lawyer told me I could take this deduction, and it turns out you couldn't take that deduction. It was illegal to take that deduction, but you may very well have an advice of counsel defense available to you. But I think implied, there's a word that's implied in the reliance on advice of counsel defense. It is reliance on advice of a sober counsel. So I think Donald Trump, has an uphill climb here, offering a reliance on the advice of counsel with a straight face. Here is, I think, even a more fundamental problem than Rudy Giuliani's possible intoxication when he's giving advice to his client. When I saw the first indictment come out, the January 6th indictment, and we learned that Rudy Giuliani was one of the unindicted co-conspirators, but pretty easy to identify him as one of the 6 unindicted co-conspirators, even though he wasn't named. And then when I saw the Georgia indictment come out, where Rudy Giuliani is a charged co-conspirator of Donald Trump, there is no such thing as reliance on advice of co-conspirator defense. And I don't say that in a snarky way. You know, if your co-conspirator is your counsel, you really are deprived from arguing that you were relying on the advice of counsel because you're being charged as being part of a criminal conspiracy with your counsel. So I think whether drunk or sober, that dog ain't gonna hunt.
If Rudolph Giuliani takes the witness stand in his own defense in this trial, is it relevant to ask him about his drinking? Is there a line of inquiry that could be relevant?
No, any criminal litigator will tell you the scope and the breadth of cross-examination is wide. And, you know, judges can get in trouble for unduly curtailing cross-examination. So absolutely, his level of intoxication at any time relevant to a fact of consequence in the prosecution is fair game on cross-examination. And the other thing, you know, you might want to start by cross-examining Rudy Giuliani after he's administered the oath and swears to tell the truth. You know, your first line of cross might be, well, to you, truth isn't truth. Isn't that right? And if he's got nowhere to go because you can play the tape, right? Just press play on cross-examination. With Rudy Giuliani announcing truth isn't truth, he would not make a compelling witness in his own defense. And frankly, that's one of the reasons, Lawrence, all along, I said I don't even know that he's likely to be pursued as a cooperating witness, because it would be really hard to clean him up sufficiently to present him to a jury.
Kindly stay with us and let's watch this video. I hope this will increase your knowledge.
As I look at this charge of defraud the United States and its historic import, I'm wondering what your perspective is on how that is being used in this case in this prosecution by Jack Smith.
I think, Lawrence, that this is the most important case. There are only 4 charges. All the others have more counts, but there are only 4 counts in this. And if you look at the indictment, it's all, the first 42 pages are built around that law of attempting or actually subverting a lawful function of government. Of course, that lawful function of government is certifying who's the next president. Even people who like Trump or don't like Trump will, yes, let's certify, let's decide who the next president is. And in this indictment, Jack Smith and the grand jury have said, hey, look, the standard here, according to what you read, is dishonesty. A much easier concept to understand for a jury. Dishonesty versus conspiracy or obstruction, which can wind up being a little bit abstract. Then you read through the indictment, and it's stunning. Let's say Trump decides, as he's entitled, to not take the stand. They have got all this testimony from 10 key people saying not just that they disagree with what Trump said about overturning the election, but they specifically told him, and that includes Pence, the Attorney General Bill Barr. It includes Pat Cipollone, the White House counsel, and 7 other people. And you go through the governor of Arizona, the governor of Michigan, Supreme Court justice in Wisconsin. So a jury can sit here and say, oh, this is what Trump says. Here's sworn testimony from 10 people saying, oh, no, I told him that's wrong. the prima facie case of dishonesty will be right there for the jury to see.
I so agree with you that first charge is the simplest and clearest thing that Donald Trump is accused of. And I just want to read for the audience how it's presented. And I think the second and third page of the indictment. It says, from on or about November 14th, 2020, through on or about January 20th, 2021, in the District of Columbia and elsewhere, the defendant, Donald J. Trump, did knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree with co-conspirators, known and unknown to the grand jury, to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful federal government function by which the results of the presidential election are collected, counted, and certified by the federal government. And Bob, what's so powerful about that as a criminal charge is that we all watched most of that happen. Most of it was happening in many ways out in the open.
Yes, it was very public. And then also, the role of Pence here is absolutely critical. He did what the Constitution and the Electoral Count Act said. He's agonized over it. He's been criticized. And in the book, Bob Costa and I did Peril, we describe additional pressure on Pence. And here's Donald Trump telling him in that period before January 6th, that day or the day before, I don't want to be your friend anymore if you don't do this. Other words, not certify Biden as the next president. You lack courage. You've betrayed us. I made you. You were nothing. Your career is over. So now put yourself in the role of a juror here, and you see Pence beleaguered, beat up, told by his boss, I made you, I'm not going to be your friend anymore, you're betraying me. And clearly, it will be very easy for the prosecutors in this case to show what's in the Constitution and the Electoral Count Act. So you've got, now, you can't tell what a jury is going to do, but this, I think, is cleverly designed to make it juror coherent, that somebody on the jury can actually, this is dishonest, this is pressure, this is contradiction from all these people, not just saying they disagreed, but saying they personally told Donald Trump he was wrong.
Bob, the first version of these scenes that we read was in your book. And now the special prosecutor is basically presenting versions of that will be presenting them to a trial jury in Washington. Did it occur to you as you were working on the book that what you were writing was one of the first things that the special prosecutors would be reading as they approached this case? That's certainly is possible. Now, give credit to Bill Weld, the former Massachusetts governor, who I talked to about this while Costa and I were working on this book. And Weld was head of the criminal division in the Justice Department in the Reagan administration. And all of what had happened that Trump had done, Weld said to me, look, this is 18 U.S.C. 371, subverting the lawful function of government. And I remember thinking about that, talking to people. As we know, some of Trump's greatest, biggest supporters, like Senator Lindsey Graham, bailed out on him because they looked at all this evidence. In fact, Lindsey Graham had his counsel on the Judiciary Committee at that time. Lindsey Graham was chairman.
investigate all of this. Lee Holmes, and he did an honest job of, is there anything to support this? And said, absolutely none. Lee Holmes came to my house and we laid out what the Giuliani and other memos said, and he said, there's just nothing here, not a matter of just less here than Giuliani said. There's absolutely zero.
Bob Woodward, thank you very much for writing the first draft of these scenes for us, and thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you.
This is latest news from USA. Kindly stay with us and let's watch this video. I hope this will increase your knowledge.
Senator, I want to go to the pharmaceutical companies' opposition to this, and they're going to go to court. They're going to try to delay it, kill it. What's going to happen in court?
Well, that's a good place to go, Lawrence, because they've tried to delay this against the will of the American people time and time again. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars in ads. Luckily, AARP and the president stood up to that. They have 3 lobbyists for every member of Congress, but we persevered and got that bill passed. Now what they're doing is they're bringing multiple lawsuits, major lawsuits with major law firms against the Justice Department in different courts in this land. And I don't think they're going to win this, and let me tell you why. They have this argument that somehow they should just be able to get what they want. They got this sweetheart deal written into law back 20 years ago, and they claim that that means that, I guess, forever they get to pick whatever price they charge 50 million seniors for their drugs under Medicare. They don't have to be in the program. I guess they don't have to sell their drugs to the 50 million seniors. Of course they want to. And so it's an outrageous argument. If under this argument, the government wouldn't be able to negotiate for doctors' fees or hospital fees or reimbursements for other things. Look what the VA does, Lawrence. They rightfully negotiate on behalf of the nation's veterans and get much less expensive drugs. Those are the kinds of prices we want to see for our seniors.
Let me just ask the control room to do a split screen here. You don't need to see me, but it'd be good to see the senator and the list of drugs, these 10 drugs that are a couple of years away from being having their price controlled by Medicare. And, Senator, this strikes me as fragile. No Republican votes for this whatsoever. Why wouldn't the next Republican president do everything possible to stop this from happening? Why wouldn't any Republican senators and members of the House elected in the next election try to repeal it?
Well, that's a good question, because that's why it's going to be such a big deal in the election. For years, including Donald Trump, people were claiming, oh, we're going to do something about pharmaceutical prices. This president finally has. And this is just the first list of 10. There's going to be 15 more, and then 15 more, and then 20 more. And even on this list, we're looking at drugs like Xarelto and Eliquis. Nearly 5 million people take those drugs for all kinds of heart conditions. You've got diabetes, major diabetes drugs like Jardiance and Januvia. You've got Ubrel on that drug, which treats arthritis and psoriasis. And the list goes on, and you're going to see more and more drugs. Add to that the limits on insulin costs, $35 a month. That is set. That is taking effect now. And now we have 3 drug companies under pressure because of the Medicare prices agreeing to extend that limit to people who aren't on Medicare, to younger people as well. And then finally, you've got the free vaccines happening now for shingles, pneumonia, for our seniors. Those are things, $2,000 limit on out-of-pocket costs. We can't afford to have those reversed. The seniors aren't going to go backwards, nor are the people of this country when it comes to drug prices. So I think this will be a major issue in this campaign, especially when you've got the fact that Joe Biden, after years and years of inaction on this issue, I've been toiling away, leading the bill on this, and finally, because of President...